At a church event in a bustling East Coast city, Joseph and Jessica's paths intertwined for the first time. They soon discovered they shared a love for the beach, movies, professional sports, running, volleyball, and parties. Everyone around them thought they were a match made in heaven. Their romance ignited at a volleyball tournament where Joe's friend Liam, originally paired with Jessica, had to cancel last minute. He called them and said, "I can't make it. You two should team up for the tournament." They agreed and squeezed in some practice before the big day. Jessica was fearless, diving for the ball and setting it up perfectly, while Joe, tall and strong, delivered powerful spikes. They were an unbeatable team on the court. They triumphed in the tournament and celebrated with other players at a local bar. Jessica VGJTME's constant touch made it clear she was interested, and Joe found himself mesmerized by her charm and touch. Later that evening, they ended up at her apartment. She kicked off her shoes and stretched out on the sofa as Joe settled next to her. "Wow, today was amazing," Jess sighed. "It was unforgettable for me too," Joe replied. "When Liam bailed, I thought we were doomed. I thought you were cute when we met, but I never imagined we've GTM'd win." "We sure did," Jess replied. "You're incredible at volleyball. Do you really think Ivy GTM'd cute?" "Yeah, something like that. The win and the party made everything feel surreal. I really like you," Joe said, planting a quick kiss on her forehead. "I couldn't be tempted to have asked for a better day," Joe continued. "It VJTM's surreal when a friend sets you up with someone so stunning that you can barely concentrate, and then she turns out to be an amazing volleyball player, too." "Yes, it was an incredible day," Jess agreed. "Do you still feel dizzy and have a dry mouth?" "Yes," Joe admitted. She moved closer, her face just inches from his, and ran her hand up his thigh to the edge of his shorts. "How does this make you feel? Any better?" Jess asked. "It makes me feel even more dizzy and dry," Joe confessed. "And this?" She slid her hand up the fly of his shorts to his waist. He caught his breath. "It adds a whole new dimension I can't describe." She leaned in, looking into his eyes, and said, "This makes me focus." "On what?" Joe asked. "On how you turn me on, not just your volleyball skills," she clarified. "I have other talents besides volleyball," Joe quipped. "Right now, IVJTM, not thinking about talents," she replied. He leaned in and kissed her, savoring the softness of her lips and the touch of her tongue. After a moment, he pulled back and gazed at her beautiful face. "Why are you smiling?" she asked, her eyes bright and her lips moist. "IVJTM in awe of your perfect lips, graceful eyelashes, and adorable freckles." "You've JTMR perfect, Jessica," Joe said. "This is all just so overwhelming," Jess murmured. They sat in silence for a couple of minutes. A tear rolled down her cheek. She moved closer, kissed him again, her tongue exploring his mouth. Her hand moved to the front of his shorts, testing his arousal. "I want to see what else I can make you feel. Come with me," Jess said, leading him to her bedroom. She swiftly pulled down his shorts and removed his shirt. Then she took off her sleeveless t-shirt, revealing her lace sports bra. She smiled as he glanced from her eyes to her bra. She removed her shorts and underwear, and his mouth opened slightly at the sight. She smiled widely, then slowly removed her bra. She approached him, grabbed his arousal, and her touch took his breath away. "I love making you feel like this, Joe," Jess said, maintaining eye contact. She pulled him toward the bed. "Now I want you to make me feel something." She leaned back against the bed, loosened her grip, and placed her hands on either side of his face, pulling his head down. Within minutes, he proved he was as skilled in bed as on the volleyball court. Just before her first climax of the night, a thought flashed through her mind. He is perfect. After more than a year of dating, their relationship blossomed. They chose a Caribbean island for their wedding. After about 2 years, they got married, vowing to become one life, one love. They both loved being intimate, though Joe sometimes struggled to keep up with Jess. They bought an old house in a fantastic location and within weeks christened every room in the backyard on a moonless night. They were an attractive couple. Joe once received a modeling offer and Jess had the face of a cover girl. She had a C cup and just enough fat on her 5V TM 8V DGKJ frame to be healthy. They were both athletic and stayed in excellent shape. They made good money with her in technical equipment sales and him in software development. They worked hard and played hard. His hobbies included mountain biking and photography, while she loved cooking, pop culture, and staying fit. Jess thrived on pop culture quizzes and showcasing her culinary skills. Friends and family couldn't imagine a more perfect couple. They did everything together and rarely disagreed, even on politics. In an era where being conservative was rare, they both shared the same views, agreeing on candidates and bonds on local election days. Any disagreement was quickly resolved, even in front of others. Friends would smile and say, yes, they are perfect for each other. They excelled in their careers and were respected by their peers. Joe's expertise in software development even benefited Jess in her work. One evening, as Jessica wrestled with a problematic new software package at her job, Joseph overheard her frustration from their home office. Intrigued, he went to investigate. After she explained the issue, he quickly crafted a small script that resolved the problem. Her work sped up, and the software functioned better for everyone. Jessica thanked him profusely, both with words and affection. Her company credited her for the improvement, and Joseph integrated the routine into his own projects. They were determined to build a good life, managing their finances to afford vacations, a better house, and nicer cars. Occasionally, Jessica's significant bonuses from major projects allowed them to invest in the market, buying, renovating, and renting out homes. After 7 years, they owned 3 houses and a condo. Joseph oversaw the renovations and handled rent collection, dealing with issues and making upgrades like installing electronic locks, security cameras, and fixing sprinklers. These tasks filled his free time while Jessica focused on her career. One Saturday, shortly after their 9th anniversary, Joseph planned to work on the lawn's irrigation system at one of their rental properties. Feeling neglected, Jessica decided to seek his attention. "Joe, before you spend the day with those pipes, I need help with something," she called out. "Is there a visible leak?" he shouted back from behind the garage door, about to head to his truck. "There aren't any pipes in our bedroom ceiling, but you better come check it out," she replied. Setting his tools aside, he went upstairs. Entering the bedroom, he froze in shock. Jessica lay on the bed, wearing only nipple clamps and using a small toy between her spread knees. "What the—" Joe exclaimed. "Oh, baby," she panted. "I think you need to stay home and hang out here right now." Her brow furrowed and her lips parted. Realizing he had been holding his breath, he dropped his keys and hastily stripped off his clothes. Laying pipes can be a complex task requiring thought and precision, Joe mused as he admired Jessica. The day didn't involve traditional pipework, but he did plenty of measuring with his eyes and contemplating with his lips and tongue. Digging, threading, and inserting parts of this unique project went so smoothly that they both experienced multiple climaxes. Afterward, they discussed having children once their finances allowed. With several properties and a robust bank account, Joe was eager to start a family before they got older. However, Jessica wanted to delay a bit longer to achieve a few more career goals and ensure their financial security. She received a promotion and felt she had a solid career, not just a job. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they triumphed in a cornhole game at a party thrown by friends and family, celebrating their perfect-for-each-other theme. They then enjoyed a 4-day vineyard tour in 2 rented limousines. Returning home, they started undressing as soon as they walked in the door, celebrating their anniversary in the living room, on the stairs, and in the bedroom. Life was sweet. They were perfectly matched. Jessica was promoted to Director of Divisional Services and excitedly shared the news with Joe. They celebrated at a fancy restaurant and again at home that night. At work, Jessica met Curtis Stanley, a tall, handsome new director of new accounts who visited their department monthly. His easy smile, fashionable suits, stylish haircut, and flirtatious nature attracted many women in the office. Although her workplace discouraged romantic relationships between different organizational levels, There was no strict rule against relationships among equals. Their CEO, Miriam, a divorced mother of two, enjoyed the company of attractive young men. Curtis noticed Jessica and thought, "Wow, she's stunning." Learning about her seemingly perfect marriage, he figured no relationship could be flawless without some adventure. Curtis and Jessica began having lunch together to discuss business since they were equals. Curtis did thorough research on her husband VDJTM's job, her favorite places, activities, and foods. He saw that she was genuinely proud of her achievements and recent promotion. During meetings and lunches, he often steered conversations to highlight her successes and boost her confidence, telling her she was becoming better and more valuable due to her accomplishments. Their company VDJTM's new account focus was on New York, which had numerous potential clients, and Curtis VDJTM's targeted accounts fell within Jessica VDJTM's jurisdiction. He frequently invited her to New York to demonstrate how her division would excel once a client signed a contract. She excelled at this, and he ensured her efforts were acknowledged, earning her praise from her boss and colleagues. Curtis skillfully directed workplace discussions to emphasize her worth and contributions, making it clear how much the leadership valued someone of her caliber when she visited New York for meetings. Curtis made sure they visited the best places and attended the most intriguing events. Jessica started looking forward to spending time with him more and more. A few months after her promotion, she became so engrossed in this routine that her and Joe's love life became less frequent. Joe tried to initiate a few conversations about their relationship, but they usually turned into her venting about work and stress. To make amends, she decided to surprise Joe for their anniversary by booking a trip to Italy in September, a place he had always dreamed of visiting. She told him about it in May, and they celebrated by spending the day in bed and planning the places to visit during the trip. A few weeks later, her company scheduled an executive retreat for July in Miami, and she had to attend. She made a big decision and told Joe about it over dinner. VDJNJ Joe, honey, I have some bad news and some good news. Which do you want to hear first? DJKJ, she asked. VDJN, just tell me, baby, VJKJ Joe replied. VDJN Joe, to save money so we can keep growing our family, I've decided to push back our September trip to Italy to a future date. Instead, we'll be going to Miami in July. VJKJ, she announced. Joe was silent for at least a minute. VJJNJ, thought you had an executive retreat in Miami in July. VDJKJ, he said. VJNJY, yes, but this is great for us. We get a hotel room paid for by the company for the week, saving us a lot of money. Miami is a fantastic holiday destination with lots of great beaches and restaurants. We can even play volleyball on the beach, VJKJ, she explained. VDJNJ, but if you VGTM are working, how will we play volleyball or do anything together? DJKJ Joe asked. VDJNJ work should be done by lunchtime every day, and we can stay the following weekend to make sure we have time just for ourselves. DJKJ, she assured him. VDJN, well, baby, I think we have enough money in the bank and I'd love to spend a week in Miami, but I don't see why we have to cancel our trip to Italy. I have GG been at the new place long and don't want to be away so soon, DJKJ Joe said, clearly disappointed. VDJNJI also Don VDJ Tem to think we've DJ Tem will ever have too much money, but that VDJ Tem's beside the point. IVD TMV already canceled the tickets for September. Wev DATM all just have to reschedule the trip to Italy for the future and focus on planning some fun activities in Miami. DJ KJ, she responded firmly. Further discussion changed nothing. Joe decided to make a restaurant reservation in advance and looked into volleyball tournaments happening while they were in Miami. Before leaving for Miami, Jessica took another trip to New York. She never gave details about her trips, and when Joe asked about her activities after work, she usually mentioned dinner meetings with potential clients or solving major problems with West Coast clients. Miami turned out to be a great place to relax and enjoy the beach, and the restaurants were excellent. They arrived on a Sunday afternoon, checked into their hotel, and spent some time on the beach. They even played an hour of volleyball in a few matches, That evening was the welcome night, and Jessica asked if Joe could attend. Her boss, Miriam, the CEO, allowed it. At the dinner party, Jessica spent a lot of time with Curtis, which Joe didn't like. When he suggested she stay close to him or leave, she insisted it was just business and reminded him they were there for a business retreat. Noticing Joe lingering, Miriam, who had always found him attractive, started talking to him. She knew he was a technician in another industry and a competent person. After a few drinks, she became flirty, running her finger up and down his arm and grabbing his wrist. Joe politely made it clear he wasn't interested and excused himself to the restroom to escape her advances. Miriam felt awkward and disliked the rejection. The event finally ended, and Joe convinced Jessica to hang out with him at the bar for more drinks, but Curtis soon joined them, cutting their time short. They decided to call it a night. Once in their room, Jessica was too tired for any amorous activities, as Joe had feared. Jessica's work sessions often ran much longer than expected, frequently until 5 p.m. With 4 nights of executive-only events, Joe often found himself sitting in the hotel hallway, waiting for her to finish work. Although he got some volleyball time and the beach was full of attractive women, their attention wasn't what he wanted. Miriam, still resentful over Joe rejecting her advances, noticed Curtis making harsh remarks about people below the executive level and joined in. Later, she used Joe as an example of worker bees versus supervisors during a hiring discussion. Miami did NVDGA TMT turn out to be the big anniversary celebration Joe had hoped for. Including the weekends, they had intimate moments, maybe 4 times. It was a disappointing anniversary for Joe, although Jessica left feeling excited about her position in the company. When they returned from Miami, life resumed as usual. Joe continued working while Jessica spent a lot of time in New York. Whenever Joe asked about her trips, he received the same vague answers. In mid-September, he tried to discuss it again. VDJ baby, until this year I never thought your company was so focused on New York. What changed? DJ KJ Joe asked. VDJ you've DJ TM. Right, dear. It was in VDJ TMT the case before, but now we've DJ MDR growing quickly, and it helps to have a critical mass of customers in one place so our team can handle multiple problems in one trip. DHAKJ, she explained. VDJ, why are you so busy with sales? EDJKJ, Joe questioned. VDJ Miriam says having a post-sale service person with the client during part of the sales process results in higher closing rates. It seems to work. This is part of a year-long push, and it should slow down after this. The company will still look for sales, but the focus will shift more to services than sales. DJKJ, she reassured him. VJNJI have more meetings in New York this week, and then just a trip to the Midwest in the first week of October, VJKJ. Jess mentioned casually. Joe was looking forward to having her home for the next week and hoped that once the year-long push was over, they could get back on track. Their relationship had become more like that of roommates, with physical intimacy reduced to about 4 times a month. Jess returned from New York on Friday. Joe welcomed her with grilled steak and her favorite wine. She hugged him and gave him a brief kiss. A little later, she poured herself a second glass of wine. VDJ Genji, thank you for preparing this wonderful meal, dear. It feels like a holiday, VJJ, Joe said. VDJ baby, IVJ team, just happy you VJTM will be home for the next week. I hope we can relax a little, VJKJ, Jess responded. VJNG, the relaxation will be too short, honey. DJJJ, she replied. VJNJ, I need to return to New York on Saturday evening. DJKJ, VJN tomorrow? I thought you VJTMD'd be home all next week. What about the weekend? DJKJ, Joe was clearly upset. VJFDA, Team EM, really sorry. This is how the plan falls apart, VJKJJ, she said firmly. Joe stood up and silently put away the dishes. She sat like a leader, watching him move around the kitchen and dining room while sipping her wine. They barely spoke as he cleaned. Feeling that the evening wouldn't be enjoyable, he moved into the laundry room and started loading laundry. VDJJ, do you have anything I can wash before you leave, Jess? JKJ, he called out. VDJ, no, that VDJ-TM's not necessary, Joe. Everything is clean. VDJ-KJ, she replied. VDJ-NDO, you just returned. It VDJ-TM's usually expensive to do laundry at a hotel. Does your company pay for this? DJ-KJ, he asked. VDJ-NJ, no. I did it at Curtis VDJ-TM's apartment. VDJ-KJ, Jess admitted. VDJ-NJ, what? Why? Is that where you stayed the last couple of times in New York? DJ-KJ. Joe looked at her silently, his mind in shock. VDJ-NJ, were you trying to save money or something? Why did you stay with him? DJ-KJ. VDJ, no. This was in VDJ-TM at about saving money. Look, there needs to be some change in our lives, in my life. Soon VDJ-TM, I'll be looking at 40 in the rearview mirror. When I reflect on my life, I want to see certain things. If my life stays the way it is, these things will never happen. The last 2 meetings in New York brought this all to the surface, Joe. Now VDJ-TM at EM, the executive director working with top managers. VDJ-TM have been collaborating with another director in our company for months. After work, we go to Broadway shows or the Metropolitan Museum of Art. We dine at the Rainbow Room and places like Luger, doing fun and elegant things. He always wears impeccably tailored suits and treats me like a queen. These are the images I want to fill my life with. Joe, you've JTM are a good guy, and we had great times. But I can VJTMT see someone like you in the life I envision. You will always be a good guy, a good-looking guy, content to be a lower-level service provider, the guy who installs door locks and sprinklers. You will never become a leader. You will never be what I want or need. We are just different people, VJ-KJ Jess declared. VJ-NJ, but baby, we talked about children and our future together, VJ-KJ said, his voice cracking. VJ-NJ, I don't think my body has time to slow down to have babies. It won't happen, Joe, VJ-KJ, Jess replied coldly. VJ-NJ, damn, did you sleep with that guy in New York? DJ-KJ, Joe asked, his voice rising. VJ-NJ, you have no right to ask me that, VJ-K, Jess snapped. VJ-NJ, why not? VJ-TM, your husband, the person you married and once said you loved. JJ-KJ, Joe retorted. VJ-NJ, this is my body. I will sleep with whoever I want. If I want to sleep with the entire New York Giants football team, VJ-TM's none of your business. I think I never really loved you or should have. You need to understand it was a mistake and be mature about it. VJ-TM filing for divorce and Don VJ-TM to call me baby anymore. VJ-TM's not appropriate for someone who is VJ-TM your wife or one VJ-TM would be. We will no longer sleep in the same bed, VJ-KJ Jess declared. Joe was completely stunned. Various thoughts swirled in his head. Strike this idiot, knock some sense into Jess, throw her out, pack his bags and leave. What did he do so wrong that she felt the need to look elsewhere? Was he really a lower-class man compared to Jess or this other guy? VJ-NJ, let me try to understand, Jess. You VJ-TM are divorcing me because you prefer to be with another man who you think is better than me, right? JKK Joe asked, struggling to keep his composure. VDJ and Joe. No, yeah, I guess that VDJ-TM's a fair summary, Joe. When you were first promoted, you didn't VJ-TM feel it. We celebrated and talked about how this could change our plans for kids. Since then, VDJ-TMVV realized we VDJ-TM are just different people, VDJ-KJ. Jess explained, VDJN, but you always told me we were perfect for each other. Why not now after spending time with some idiot director? Did you get this idea from him? DJK Joe pressed. VDJ and VJ-TM is not just about him, and his name is Curtis. Others see it too, VDJK Jess said. VDNJ, what do other people say or imply that VJ-TM not good enough to be with you? DJK, Joe asked incredulously. VDJNJ people you know and respect. DKJJ, Jess replied. VDJNJ, really? Like who? VJKJ, Joe demanded. VDJ Miriam, you know, and Gloria, the financial director, and another director at work, VDJKJ, Jess listed. VDN, seriously? I thought Miriam liked me. So your entire new executive group at work thinks VJ-TM am not good enough for you? DAKJ Joe asked, his voice filled with disbelief. I'm beneath you? Don't waste time, Joe. Are you taking the guest room or am I? We can't share a bed anymore, Jess stated definitively. Oh my God, Jess, all this time in New York, you've been sleeping with that guy, haven't you? Joe accused. Joe, it's over, Jess said firmly. You're right about that, Joe replied. I'll take the guest room. Joe walked down the hall, gathering his belongings for the night while Jess remained in the master bedroom. The next week, with Jess still in New York, Joe sought out a family lawyer. He met an attractive blonde with sparkling eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. When they sat down in her office, she asked, How can I assist you, Joseph? Please call me Joe. And Melanie, I need help with the divorce, Joe explained. I'll need more details to provide the best advice, Mel responded. Joe explained the situation, and Mel warned him about the possibility of physical misuse, asked about his feelings on reconciliation, and provided a list of tasks to complete while she prepared the legal documents. He began taking the necessary steps to separate their finances and other legal ties, such as car ownership. Dividing the houses was challenging, so he and Mel worked out a fair offer. Joe informed their friends and family, prompting an angry call from Jess in New York. You're an idiot! Who gave you the right to announce our divorce to our friends and family? Jess yelled. You did, Jess, Joe replied calmly. When? Jess demanded. When you said you were divorcing me and that you'd rather be with that idiot in New York, Joe reminded her. I expected we would mention it during family events, not make a huge announcement. Besides, I didn't give you permission to say that, Jess fumed. What's wrong with the wording? Joe asked, confused. Jess read from the note her sister sent. Unfortunately, I have to announce that Jess has decided to neglect her wedding vows and take a new lover from her company who seduced her. We will not be able to attend social events or otherwise participate in our former relationship with you as a loving couple. Please respect the sensitivity of our situation and allow us to end our marriage as soon as possible. What's wrong with this, Jess? It makes it sound like I was a fool who let myself be seduced by some smarter or more powerful guy, Joe said, bewildered. I stand by my opinion, Jess, although it doesn't matter now, does it? This has already been sent to everyone. You wanted a divorce, and I wouldn't stay married to you no matter how much I loved you. As you pointed out, it's inappropriate to stay with someone who's essentially an admitted strumpet. I've been tested for STDs and am awaiting the results. I suggest you do the same. If he slept with you while you were married to me, he could have slept with others. Other fools who let themselves be seduced by him, Joe said coldly. You fool! Jess ended the call and almost threw the phone on the table. Although Joe got some satisfaction from this, he still didn't sleep well. He couldn't help but think about what he had done wrong. Thoughts of all the wonderful times they had together kept running through his mind. The trips they took, the places they made love, the ways they made love. Food seemed to lose its taste. Their lawyers did their jobs and the assets were divided. They each kept their own retirement accounts and the cash accounts were separated. Credit cards were canceled and reissued to individual accounts. He didn't want to live in the house they had shared when they were in love, so she got it. He took the apartment since it was closer to the city center and better suited his new life. The documents were changed and recorded. He moved into an apartment since the two houses that remained were permanently rented out. His apartment was not far from the condominium they once owned together. 2 months after Jess announced the need for changes in her life, they no longer spoke except for legal matters. Occasionally they saw each other at church or social events. The first time she brought Curtis, she insisted on reintroducing him to Joe. Curtis extended his hand and grinned. I've heard a lot about you, Joe. Joe looked him in the eyes but didn't extend his hand. I wish I knew where this was going when I first met you in Miami, he said. He looked at Jess, shook his head, and turned away. As time went on, Joe divided their mutual friends into 2 groups, those he could trust and those who would likely relay anything he said back to Jess. Some people he decided would no longer be part of his close circle. He could still play catch or drink beer with them in a group, but he kept his feelings and inner thoughts to himself. Joe decided Neil Sedaka was right. Breaking up is hard to do. When Joe of DJJTM's friends at work found out, they were very supportive. His boss called him into the office and sat him down. "Joe, if you need anything, just let me know. This must be very difficult. If you need time or someone to talk to, I'm here. I've had relationship problems in the past, and sometimes it helps to talk things through to make decisions and keep things organized." "Thank you, Evan, for your kind words," Joe said. "I know ITVJRTM's hard to deal with all the aspects of this kind of problem. And if the thought of revenge hasn't VJGTM arisen, it will. When it does, Joe, Don VDTM take any criminal action like punching the guy or anything that could land you in jail. A few minutes of satisfaction, one VGTM to be worth potential years of legal pain and suffering," Evan advised. "That might be good advice, Evan, thank you. Now that you mention it, it sounds like you have some experience in this area," Joe replied. "Yes, maybe," Joe replied. "What kind of revenge can someone in my position get?" Joe asked. "That's a good question. Think of it like a programming problem, Joe. Lay out everything VJJ specifications, risks, unacceptable elements like physical violence, and various areas for potential retaliation. Maybe financial, maybe legal, maybe social. Decide which areas matter most to you. Be as creative as you are in your work," Evan suggested. "Okay, you've given me a lot to think about," Joe said. "If you need time, just let me know," Evan added. Joe went out and sat down at a table to think. With Evan's permission, he used the conference room and got to work. Using an old board on an easel, he listed the following types of revenge: social, financial, professional, self-esteem, and legal. He decided to gather a few close friends from work to help brainstorm. They persuaded him to add physical and technical pain to the list. They created a matrix with these categories on the left and potential revenge ideas on the right. Ideas flowed freely, some outlandish, some promising. At the end of the day, he took a photo of the board, placed it in an empty box, and stored it in the closet at the back of the room. Evan called to check in, expressing hope that Joe felt better, and reminding him to limit using others' productive time to before lunch and after work. Joe thanked him for his patience. A couple of days later, Joe was playing racquetball with a friend from church. "Are you going to participate in the annual church beach volleyball tournament next month?" his friend asked. "Well, I hadn't thought about it," Joe replied. "My volleyball partner and I broke up." "I know, but it always puts you in a good mood. You might want to join the boys' team or something," his friend suggested. "Probably not this year," Joe replied. "Okay, I saw that Jess signed up and thought of you." "Did she sign up?" the friend asked. "Yeah, mixed couples," Joe said. "Oh, what's the registration deadline?" the friend asked. "A week before," Joe informed him. "Thanks for the reminder," the friend said. After thinking about it all night, Joe took out the board the next morning and added a new line at the bottom: sports results. At lunchtime, he asked his revenge team to work on the matrix in the conference room. That same day, he made a few calls and met up with an old friend from his university days for a drink. The next day, Ben, one of his revenge crew friends, walked into Joe's office and closed the door. "Joe, how serious are you about getting revenge on Jess and her world?" Ben asked. "That's a good question. Why?" Joe replied. As time went on, Joe divided their mutual friends into two groups: those he could trust and those who would likely relay anything he said back to Jess. Some people, he decided, would no longer be part of his close circle. He could still play catch or drink beer with them in a group, but he kept his feelings and inner thoughts to himself. Joe decided Neil Sedaka was right. Breaking up is hard to do. When Joe of EJTMM's friends at work found out, they were very supportive. His boss called him into the office and sat him down. "Joe, if you need anything, just let me know. This must be very difficult. If you need time or someone to talk to, I'm here. I've had relationship problems in the past, and sometimes it helps to talk things through to make decisions and keep things organized." "Thank you, Evan, for your kind words," Joe said. "I know at TVDJTM's hard to deal with all the aspects of this kind of problem, and if the thought of revenge has in VDJTMT arisen, it will. When it does, Joe, Don VJTM to take any criminal action like punching the guy or anything that could land you in jail. A few minutes of satisfaction, one VJTM, be worth potential years of legal pain and suffering, Evan advised. That might be good advice, Evan, thank you. Now that you mention it, it sounds like you have some experience in this area, Joe replied. Yes, maybe, Joe replied. What kind of revenge can someone in my position get? Joe asked. That's a good question. Think of it like a programming problem, Joe. Lay out everything VDJ specifications, risks, unacceptable elements like physical violence, and various areas for potential retaliation. Maybe financial, maybe legal, maybe social. Decide which areas matter most to you. Be as creative as you are in your work, Evan suggested. Okay, you've given me a lot to think about, Joe said. If you need time, just let me know, Evan added. Joe went out and sat down at a table to think. With Evan's permission, he used the conference room and got to work. Using an old board on an easel, he listed the following types of revenge: social, financial, professional, self-esteem, and legal. He decided to gather a few close friends from work to help brainstorm. They persuaded him to add physical and technical pain to the list. They created a matrix with these categories on the left and potential revenge ideas on the right. Ideas flowed freely, some outlandish, some promising. At the end of the day, he took a photo of the board, placed it in an empty box, and stored it in the closet at the back of the room. Evan called to check in, expressing hope that Joe felt better and reminding him to limit using others' productive time to before lunch and after work. Joe thanked him for his patience. A couple of days later, Joe was playing racquetball with a friend from church. Are you going to participate in the annual church beach volleyball tournament next month? His friend asked. Well, I hadn't thought about it, Joe replied. My volleyball partner and I broke up. I know, but it always puts you in a good mood. You might want to join the boys' team or something, his friend suggested. Probably not this year, Joe replied. Okay, I saw that Jess signed up and thought of you. Did she sign up? The friend asked. Yeah, mixed couples, Joe said. Oh, what's the registration deadline? The friend asked. A week before, Joe informed him. Thanks for the reminder, the friend said. After thinking about it all night, Joe took out the board the next morning and added a new line at the bottom: sports results. At lunchtime, he asked his revenge team to work on the matrix in the conference room. That same day, he made a few calls and met up with an old friend from his university days for a drink. The next day, Ben, one of his revenge crew friends, walked into Joe's office and closed the door. Joe, how serious are you about getting revenge on Jess and her world? Ben asked. That's a good question. Why? Joe replied. It's fine now, Joe replied loudly. Then, quietly, so only she could hear, he added, You're a team of losers. Jess yanked her hand away and swung at him, but he deftly dodged. She glared at him, checking if anyone had noticed. No one was close enough. Many in the audience thought Jess's reaction was due to jealousy, seeing her as a sore loser. The award ceremony proceeded smoothly, though Jess was upset to learn that for the first time, the engraved plaque on the perpetual trophy would include not only the winners' names but also their opponents' names and the score. At the afternoon feast, Liam asked Dee Dee, You look familiar. Have we met before? I don't think so, Liam, she replied, but I hear that a lot. Dee Dee and I went to school together, Joe explained. We played volleyball. She was always better and made it to the Olympics for the U.S. beach volleyball team. She had to leave early due to an ankle injury but was on TV often and is recognized frequently. That makes sense, Liam admitted. Later that evening, after Joe took Dee Dee home, she invited him in for a nightcap. Once she had changed and they were settled on the couch, she said, I know this started as a rematch, but during our training and today VJTM's tournament, I really enjoyed spending time with you, Joey. She leaned in and kissed him. It was a long, deep kiss that ended with her tongue lightly brushing his lips. When he opened his eyes, he saw her lips, noticed their wet contours, and slightly parted position. His gaze trailed down her graceful jawline and neck to her collarbone. The pattern of her freckles was a charming contrast to her elegant shoulders and figure. He looked into her eyes again, which sparkled in the soft light. Dee Dee, I'd love to explore a relationship with you, but not right now. I came to you initially for your volleyball skills, but now I want more. However, it feels too much like a reflection of my past. You deserve better than to be part of an old story. I want to go on dates and get to know you for who you are now." "That's more than fair. I appreciate your honesty. I don't want to be anyone's reflection," Joe said. They finished their drinks and agreed to go on a date in 3 weeks. He walked back to his apartment after a gentle kiss. The divorce was final, and Jess and Joe were now living separately. Legally, they were aware of major events in each other's lives because they lived in the same area, had mutual friends, and attended the same church. At work, Ben asked Joe how he was feeling and if he was ready to erase the matrix. "I still feel like I haven't resolved 10 years of lies or 10 years of love that ended so abruptly," Joe said. "Okay, the idea I had has evolved, and I think we should look at the matrix so you can decide how extreme you want to go," Ben suggested. "Extreme? In what way?" Joe asked. "This could have long-term consequences," Ben clarified. At noon, the V crew gathered in the conference room, setting up the matrix board. Before they started, Joe said, "VDJ." Ben came up with a new point in the legal row. "But first, let me fix this," Joe said. He rewrote the category physical pain, and in the square next to it, in red, he wrote bloody nose from volleyball. He continued to write in red for the social humiliation of his initial divorce announcement and his sporting humiliation. "Red means it's done. Now it's up to you, Ben," Joe said. After Ben explained his idea, the room fell silent. His remarks addressed 2 aspects of the same action. The first action he had already discussed with Evan and was in the process of executing, but the second was left to Joe. A discussion followed about the pros and cons of the actions. The meeting adjourned, leaving Joe to decide whether to take action or not. Joe took a few weeks to consider his options, and his life moved on. He made his decision and moved forward, discovering that Jess was pregnant and living with Curtis in the apartment she got after the divorce. Joe hadn't attended church since the volleyball tournament, but one Sunday, after the service, he ran into Jess in the parking lot. "Are you going to congratulate me, Joe?" Jess asked. "I thought your precious body was too delicate to bear children, Jess." "Or was his top-class seed just too potent to resist?" Joe retorted. "It must have been top class because it wasn't planned," Jess replied coolly. "How long?" Joe asked. 7 months, Jess said. "So you didn't even wait until the divorce was final to get pregnant." "Top-class seed indeed," Joe sneered. "As I recall, looking at the trophy in the church window this morning, you and that idiot are the real losers," Jess shot back. "And you're an idiot too, Jess. Just a simple-minded, low-class idiot. A loser in life who will never achieve anything," Joe spat. "Just in case you're wondering where I am if you don't see me next week, Curtis and I are going to Monte Carlo for a vacation. A top-class vacation," Jess said smugly. "Keep an air sickness bag handy, loser," Joe suggested, turning away. "Bye, loser," she said as she got into her car. Decisions had been made, actions had been taken, and life moved on. Jess's company began encountering problems that complicated her situation. Miriam, the CEO, was on edge, as were the CFO and general counsel. Like all modern companies, this anxiety rippled through the organization. Several people were laid off and budgets were tightened. Problems at work exacerbated tensions in Jess's apartment. As her pregnancy progressed, Curtis became less interested in doctor's visits and other events associated with childbirth. Changes at work interfered with his travel schedule, and he became increasingly irritable. His move to their city from New York did not bring the happiness he had expected, and their relationship with the upper class became strained. The root cause of the company's recent problems was identified as a legal issue regarding their software. It turned out that the company they hired to create a critical software product had used a program that belonged to another company without permission. Since Jess's company paid for the product and shared ownership, they were also responsible for the stolen code. To make matters worse, her company and the software company were selling modified versions of the program to other companies for use in their service delivery processes. The software had been in use for several years, and no one could remember who was responsible for using the stolen code. People were laid off from the software company, and legal costs were taking a toll on Jess's company. The legal owner of the code demanded licensing fees and all the money Jess's company had earned from the software, plus fines. After months of legal battles, the options remained unchanged. Jess's company could either stop using the program or enter into a licensing agreement to pay for the rights to the key code. The software company that developed the program had recently closed down, and its employees had dispersed into the industry. Not using the program and trying to replace it would put Jess's company out of business due to the time required to develop a new solution. They were forced to make a cash deal for licensing, resulting in a 10-year declining payment schedule with high initial costs that would decrease to a reasonable annual figure. The financial strain led to even greater turmoil at Jess's company, with salaries and commissions cut or eliminated. By the time Jess's baby was due, she and Curtis were barely civil roommates. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't for me. You know what kind of person I am, Jess. I love good restaurants, art museums, and holidays in Monte Carlo. I don't like diapers, strollers, or postponing vacations because of a child, Curtis explained. How can you say that? I thought you loved me. I thought we could fix things after the baby was born, Jess pleaded. I have to go, Jess. Goodbye, Curtis said, closing the door firmly behind him. Jess collapsed on the sofa, her body racked with uncontrollable sobs. Suddenly she felt a rush of liquid. Oh my God, my water just broke, she thought, trying to steady herself. She grabbed her phone and called a colleague. Gloria, please help me. My water just broke and Curtis has left for the airport, Jess said, her voice trembling with urgency. Oh, Jess, I'm so sorry, but I'm 2 hours away with my sisters. Try calling Anita or Susan. Gloria responded apologetically before her cell phone cut out. Jess desperately dialed the other two numbers. Anita's phone went straight to voicemail, and Susan's phone wasn't accepting messages. Her body signaled that there was no more time to waste. She stumbled into the bedroom, grabbed her baby bag, and headed to the car. Struggling to get into her BMW, she managed to open the door, throw her bag on the passenger seat, and slide behind the wheel. She drove only a short distance before realizing she couldn't continue. The contractions were too intense, making driving dangerous. She remembered someone who lived nearby who might be able to help. She found the number in her contacts and hit the call button. "Hello?" came the voice on the other end. "Oh, thank God, Joe. Are you home? Please help me right now," Jess pleaded. "Yes, I am here. I was just getting ready for the evening." "What do you need and why are you calling me?" Joe asked, confused. "No time to explain. Please, I'm in my car on the street in front of the Ashton Glen Apartments. I need your help immediately," Jess said, her voice urgent. "I'm on my way," Joe replied, sensing the gravity of the situation. "Thank you," she whispered before ending the call. Another wave of contractions hit, causing her to turn on the hazard lights and leave the headlights on. Within minutes, Joe pulled up in front of her car, his canary yellow Audi gleaming under the streetlights. He quickly got out and approached her. "Thanks for coming, Joe," Jess said, her voice strained with pain. "Do you need help with the car, Jess?" Joe asked. "No, my water broke. The baby is coming and I need to get to the hospital," Jess explained. "Where's Curtis?" Joe asked. "He left for the airport," Jess replied, her voice cracking. "While you're in labor. Call him back," Joe suggested, incredulous. "He won't return," Jess said, starting to cry again. "What do you mean?" Joe asked, bewildered. "He broke up with me. He doesn't want a child," Jess managed to say through her sobs. "I can't understand you if you're crying, Jess," Joe said gently. "I'm really sorry." "I'll try not to," Jess said, trying to compose herself. "Is he going back to New York?" Joe asked. "No, he left the company. He's moving to the West Coast," Jess explained. Another contraction overwhelmed her. "I will help you get to the hospital. First, give me your phone," Joe said. She handed it to him and he quickly dialed 911. "Yes, operator, there is a pregnant woman in labor on Avenel Drive, in front of the Ashton Glen Apartments. Please send an ambulance immediately. Her water has broken and she's in a silver BMW with hazard lights on. If you need more information, call this number back." He handed the phone back to Jess. "Can you take me there, Joe? I don't want to ruin my new car," Jess said weakly. "Where did you get it?" "It looks expensive," Joe remarked. "The program I wrote to help your company's software is actually owned by my employer. They own everything I create while working for them. But if an employee generates significant revenue, they get a percentage. Since your company sold the software to others, all those companies owe huge licensing fees. Remember those bonuses you used to get? I received a 7-figure payment with more to come," Joe explained. Another wave of contractions hit Jess. "Jess, I see you are in no position to talk. The ambulance should be here soon. I have to go. I have a date." "Bye, Jess," Joe said. Another painful contraction hit Jess. "Joe, could you stay until the ambulance arrives and take care of my car?" Jess pleaded. "I don't think so, Jess. That's what a husband or the father of the child would do," Joe replied coldly. "Joe!" Jess called out desperately, opening the car door. Joe stopped, turned around and said, "I think I can say that Curtis is an idiot and you are a cheating strumpet. You two are perfect for each other." He got into his car and drove away.